Welcome back to Real Estate Team Builders. Lars Hedenborg here, the founder of Real Estate B School, and we're going to do a follow-up episode on Cody May shared wisdom. I mean, at a very, very deep level, his mission in life is to help agents and team leaders convert online leads. And that is a difficult road. If you're in the game of online lead gen and online lead conversion, it is a difficult road. And so I encourage you to go back and consume every bit of that interview. This is a guy that has a high level of experience in other verticals, disciplines, and in other verticals. So outside of the real estate industry, in like other areas besides just real estate sales. So I brought in kind of like a subject matter expert that applied all of those disciplines in other industries. And now he just geeks out on the real estate space. And so there's a whole, and actually, let me do a preview for my next episode. Chris Snow, who's a team leader, he did 220 transactions, 90 million in volume, 2.4 million GCI. Most of his business is from online lead gen. That's the next episode. So I'm going to go a little bit more tech on online lead conversion on my follow-up episode on Chris Snow's interview. For this follow-up, something that Cody said that I want to go a little bit deeper on. And, you know, as I look back on my journey in business growth and not having all the answers, you know, I'd never built a business before. I'd never built systems before. I'd never led or hired or managed people before. Yet I somehow went from, you know, no license or no sales ever in 2007 to 44 sides in my first full year, to 58 to 118 to 178 to 248 sides in 2012. And that year I sold one of the 248 homes. So I did it on a sound economic model with leverage and leading and managing others and holding them accountable. And something that Cody said really stuck out, and it's something I learned that I'm going to go through a model from Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach. But Cody in his interview said confidence, this was my like one last thought before we leave. He said, confidence is created in your ability to figure things out. Confidence is created in your ability to figure things out. So, you know, let's say you're sitting at, it doesn't really matter, 20 transactions, you want to go to 40 to 80 to 160, or you're at 50 and you're like, there's no way I could possibly do any more. Yet you have a growth orientation. You want to go to 100 and 200. And if there only was a path, right? So confidence is created in your ability to figure things out. Of course, Real Estate B School has the path. We have all the tools and systems and the processes and all of that. Yet it takes some resourcefulness, which is essentially what this statement is saying. It takes resourcefulness to be able to make it happen. Even if I were to hand you all the tools and systems to basically say, hey, listen, here's everything you need to go from wherever you are, could be 0 to 3 million plus GCI in a single year. That's essentially what Real Estate B School is. And if I gave you access to all of that, you still need to be able to be super resourceful. And in those little wins, that's what's going to give you confidence to keep going. So there's a concept I learned from Dan Sullivan. It's called the 4 C's. And I think he calls it the confidence loop. It's making a commitment, courage, capabilities, and confidence. And let me break it down for you, because I think it'll help you. And this goes for really every area of your life. So in any area of your life, if you want it to be different in the future, it starts with a commitment, like an actual commitment. Most commitments end up not being real commitments because the person making the commitment doesn't fight through the courage phase, which is the really uncomfortable phase of this 4 C's loop, right? It's easy to say, okay, I'm going to commit to go from 50 transactions to 100 transactions. And then like, you need to hire a licensed assistant and you're like, I've never managed anybody before. And you know, what if I don't have enough money to pay them? And like all of a sudden you're in the uncomfortable courage phase and you talk yourself out of the commitment. Versus like when I make a commitment, like I've gotten pretty good at this cycle where I blast right through the courage phase. Like I already know that there's someone out there that has done the thing I want to do. So in terms of the capability, I can make a commitment to do this. I can have enough courage because I've done this enough times where I can just go into the capability. What's the thing I need to learn? What capability or skill set do I need to bring into my business, into my world to be able to do this thing at a high level? And that's essentially the commitment, the courage, and the capabilities. And when you make a commitment, so I'm going to go from 50 to 100 transactions. In order to do that, it requires that I hire a showing agent and a licensed assistant. That's going to free up probably, I don't know, more than half of your working hours if you're a busy solo agent looking to expand and build leverage. Once you make that commitment and you have the courage to follow through on it, the capabilities, it could be as simple as coming to Real Estate B School and you can have our showing agent system, or you can have our hire a buyer agent system, or hire a licensed administrator. Here's the onboarding, the questions you ask, the ads you run to attract people, how you onboard them, what they do, their job description, the backstage systems, which is Trello, in order to run the entire thing. Like we have all the capabilities. The question is, will you work through the courage phase? Make a commitment, get through the courage phase, build out the capability. And in doing that, you accomplish the thing and you get more confidence. So it's almost like, I'm doing this on video, but if you're listening to the podcast, it's like if you're starting on the bottom and imagine like a circle, like almost a vortex going higher, like you're making like a little commitment, you've got a little courage, and then it's like spinning circles up, like a little commitment, you get the courage to work through it, you build the capability, and it gives you confidence. A bigger commitment, you have a little bit more courage to get through it, build a bigger capability, or maybe a bigger tool or system in your business, and then you have even more confidence. And so think of like, apply this to a real estate journey where I went from 27 sides in my first 10 months to 44 to 58 to 118. That required me hiring a part-time assistant, licensed, and then hiring a couple buyer agents. So the first commitment was I am going to grow. And I think I wanted to get to 96 sides. No, 160 sides the year I failed, and I hit 118. So in order to do that, I had to bring buyer agents into my world. And I only started my team the end of 2009, the year we did 58 transactions. And so I didn't even have anyone on my team except my administrator at that point. So I made the commitment to grow. I wanted to go from 60 to 160. Again, I failed. I only doubled my business that year. I had the courage to follow through and say, okay, I have to go. I ran some Craigslist ads, people responded. I met them at coffee shops. I just talked about, I didn't have the system we have in place for, recruiting and hiring and onboarding agents. It was really, I was winging it back in the day before we built out these systems like they are today. But I had the courage and I built the capability because I was resourceful, right? This started out with confidence is created in your ability to figure things out. I was going to figure it out. I knew that if I wanted freedom, I could not work with buyers. I just knew it. Like all my time, the time where I wanted to be with my family, I was out working with buyers. I could actually get sellers to commit to working with me during business hours or taking a listing appointment at a time that I wanted to. And it was just more manageable. It didn't like out of thin air, all of a sudden, there's a new home in the market and now I have to rearrange my whole schedule to show that home, right? It's crazy. Or have a buyer that's looking in, like in my market, it's Metro Charlotte, North Carolina. They could be like 45 minutes apart in 4 different corners, and we could be driving for like 6 hours in a day. I knew there's no way I could have a quality of life that I wanted and make the money I wanted if I was going to work with buyers, right? So the commitment was grounded, right, in some rational strategic business thinking. The courage was just to, it had to happen if I wanted to be a good husband and a good father. The capability came out with like, how hard could this be? I just need to write a job description. I need to meet with some people and let's start hiring and failing, right? And then my first buyer agent I hired stayed with me for 7 years, Chris Goodwin. My first administrator that I hired, Tia Wilson, stayed with me for 7 years, right? And those were my first 2 hires. And I didn't have the capability to hire and onboard an administrator. I didn't have the capability to hire and get an agent to be busy. I was just committed. I had the courage. I built the capability, and then my confidence increased. So when I brought on my licensed administrator in 2008, my confidence increased. When I brought on my first buyer agent, late 2009, my confidence increased. When I hired my second buyer agent, I started having team meetings, and it was like a one-to-many type coaching style. My confidence increased to 3 or 4 agents. We went from 118 to 178 transactions. I hired my second administrator, and my confidence increased, right? So all these commitments require courage and building out capabilities. And as a result, your confidence increases. And it's important as a business owner for you to maintain your confidence, because this is a tough business. And that's all I've got for you. I wanted to keep the message short today as a follow-up to Cody May's message. Check out the last podcast. Chris Snow is our next interview, which is going to be awesome. This guy did 220 sides. He's out of production, 90 million in volume, 2.4 million GCI, and he's cracked the code on online lead conversion. And so I'm excited for you guys to hear from Chris on our next podcast episode. In the meantime, if you're wanting to know what this journey looks like, you've heard me probably talk about the Real Estate Business Growth Navigator. You can go to realestatebusinessgrowth.com, but also I wrote a book called Scale or Die. I very rarely talk about it, but you can go to scaleorddiebook.com, scaleorddiebook.com, and you can pick up a copy of the book. It talks about my journey and a bunch of our members that have gone from 50 transactions to 400 transactions, and they've just increased their business and taken their hours down and taken their stress down. So either realestatebusinessgrowth.com or scaleorddiebook.com. We'll see you over on one of those sites, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Be good.